Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available too at carolthecoach.com.
Now I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I am married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell. So you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself? I got an interesting email this week. He's
from a woman who actually had a dilemma with her husband. I started to talk about this last week, and then I got interrupted because I had a call. So I wanted to go back to her email because it was interesting. She said, "Hi, Carol. My husband has had a relapse. We have been in recovery since 1998. He called your show several months ago. This is his third relapse since that time. He's been going to groups, counseling, and for the last 2.5 years, he's been looking at porn on his work computer at home and at work. He started seeing a CSAT. Now, a CSAT is a certified sexual addictions therapist. That's what I am. We were trained by ITAP, which is Patrick Carnes' group. So she says he started seeing a CSAT per your recommendation and confessed to her. He is working the Out of the Shadows workbook by Patrick Carnes. Yes, I always recommend that workbook, and I actually buy bunches of them and sell them to my clients. She says, I'm trying to decide if I should stay in the marriage or should I leave? Currently, we're doing an in-house separation. Part of my boundaries to feel safe is for him to have a polygraph. Can you recommend somebody in Florida? She says, I have listened to your show on sexhelp.com, and I've also listened to Betrayal Recovery Radio. That's my other show. I do that on Thursdays for partners. Both have been very helpful. I know you have talked about polygraphs in the past, because it's so important for me to deal with what she's actually dealing with, is that I say, I get that you are having difficulty figuring out what to do next. And so if you want to call the show, we can talk more. She then sent me an email and said, hey, I have one more question, Carol. My husband CSAT is urging me to talk with a CSAT counselor before the disclosure to prepare me. Oh, I definitely believe that this woman needs to be prepared. You should never, as a partner or an addict, into a disclosure without lots and lots of preparation and lots of safety. The disclosure is an opportunity to hear everything, the entire truth. It's for the partner so that he or she will know that there are no more secrets and she'll stop getting staggered disclosures. And it's for the addict to get all of the secrets out so he or she will no longer feel like they're holding a secret that's keeping them from connecting and developing intimacy. She said, now, Carol, I thought the partners were supposed to talk with APSAT. That's APSATS, which is the Association for Partner Specialists of Sexual Addiction. And to be real honest, either one of these groups do a good job. There is no doubt that APSAT is more partner sensitive because our clients, I'm an APSAT and a CSAT. So if you can find a CSAT who has an APSAT training, you are getting a double bang for your buck. That's the way I would go. And if you can't, then I would interview that CSAT and find out, what are you going to do to keep me safe? Because here's what you need to do. If you're in a disclosure situation, you should be writing out every question you have wanted to know from the addict so that all your questions get answered. You should also be coming up with polygraph questions so that you can polygraph him or her at the end of the disclosure. So now I'm just going to treat you for who you are. You're a woman. And so I'm just going to tell you that you should have worked or need to work, counselor, whether they're an APSAT or a CSAT, at least 2 or 3 sessions to make sure all your needs are being met. You're the victim in this. You need to have special consideration. And you know what I find? Addicts that work with me who want to do a good disclosure want to make sure their partner is safe because they're tired of withholding information, traumatizing their wife or husband. They want to do this right. That's the good news. So, my listener says, my husband CSAT said it would be better for me to talk with a CSAT, again, that's a certified sexual addiction therapist, because they have more training. Oh, well, that's absolutely, positively not true. I'm sorry that your counselor feels that way, but both an APSAT or a CSAT therapist have good training. My experience, again, is that APSATs, being partner sensitive, have better training for the partners. Although I've been working with Stephanie Connors, I've seen what she's been doing for partner training, and I do believe that CSATs are getting better at knowing how to be partner sensitive. The last thing we want to do is pit 2 organizations against each other. These are 2 fine organizations that are doing the best that they can. So, again, my listener says, she suggests that I pick a CSAT or come and talk with her. Then after disclosure, talk with her again. What are your thoughts on this? So I say, already your CSAT doesn't exactly know the real truth. So I'm a little nervous. It sounds like she thinks she knows, or he knows. I don't know why I think it's a woman. Because you said she said it would be better for me to talk with CSAT. Here's what I believe to be true. Ask her if she knows of somebody who is an APSAT and a CSAT. You're looking for somebody in Florida. And I can recommend to you, although I'm not sure he does this work, but James Anir and Sharon Reinerson from Core Behavioral Health, they're in Florida, and they are, James is a CSAT supervisor and an APSAT. He can at least get you to the right people. Because, again, we want you as a partner to be absolutely attended to through this process. This discovery is for the partner. it's for the entire family. There's no doubt about it. But from an absent standpoint, this is for you to get the truth. You have been living in lies and deceit forever and ever and ever, and you deserve the truth. Okay? So go to Core Behavioral Health and, email the info box and ask for James. Tell him I sent you and see if he won't get you the information that you desire about who's available in Florida. I know they're not in your city, and I'm not going to share what city that is for your confidentiality. But he's pretty connected, and he would likely be able to answer that. I really, really, really want you to get good help. Okay, so hopefully I have helped shed some light on this interesting email. Now, if you heard the intro, I'm sure if you've been listening to the show, you could probably repeat it verbatim. One of the things is that this truck driver who is saying, why is it that I want what I want, and when I can't have it, I want it more, and then when I get it, I don't want it anymore. That is so much a part of sexual addiction. For so many sex addicts, it is the pursuit. It is the chase. It is the seduction. And that is more important than the sex. So when this truck driver said, what is it about this? Why is it that I want what I can't have, and then when I get it, I don't want it anymore? Wow. That is a characteristic of sex addiction. And, for my listening audience, you probably know that can be a lot of what human behavior is all about. Men that date women and women that date men, once they feel secure in a relationship, they might have difficulty dealing with the actual relational component and decide, no, I'd rather go look for the fantasy and the thrill and the excitement and the seduction. The relationship is not what I really want. Well, I'm not here to pathologize you. If you don't want a relationship, that's absolutely fine. But what I do know to be true is that lots and lots of people do want a relationship. And unfortunately, you may be hooking up with somebody who wants a relationship, and they're like, how come this person acted so into me? Now they have me. They've committed to me. We're married. And they seem so bored. They seem so disinterested. They seem like they have intimacy anorexia. That is a term that's been used a lot lately. And although, we know that labels are not necessarily helpful, we also believe that a lot of our clients do want labels. They want to understand what is going on in their lives. And if you're somebody that wants a label so that you can understand what's going on, I really don't blame you. If you're somebody that you can't seem to have a relationship with somebody, then why don't you go ahead and get the book Intimacy Anorexia by Doug Weiss. It's interesting. It talks about the fact that a lot of our clients are relationally challenged. And I'm going to tell you one more thing that I'm really excited about. I just submitted my book to be published, How to Help Her Heal, a Sex Addict's Workbook to Developing Empathy. And empathy is such an important relational quality. I cannot wait for you to see it. I cannot wait for you to work the workbook and to develop the skills you need to create intimacy and develop the trust, the authenticity, and the transparency you need to get healthy. There just aren't enough resources out there for you, but we're building on it. And that's why I am interviewing people from the Outer Circle Recovery. There's this place called the Henry House, and it's an 11-bed, male-only recovery residence designed to assist individuals in their next step of recovery. And boy, what I know to be true is that it is so important for clients who go through treatment to be in an environment where they're safe and where they're getting extra sobriety and recovery. And so I'm going to be interviewing some people tonight who are going to be talking about the Henley House and Outer Circle Recovery is. So I'm going to welcome them to the show. Hi, this is Carol Sheets, a.k.a. Carol the Coach, and I'm excited to have you on the show.
Hello?
Are you there? Yes. Who do I have on the phone?
Oh, hey, this is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. It's important for us when we're working with people to really get the information that we need to understand what resources are out there. And so that's what this show is all about. It's about seeking resources and finding out what is out there to support you in your sexual addiction. Hi, this is Carol Jurgensen-Sheets. And who do I have on the phone?
This is Ashley Smart calling from Outer Circle Recovery.
Yay, Ashley. Yeah, I was really happy to have you on the show to talk about this incredible program. Do you have anybody joining us tonight?
I don't. It will just be me calling in, talking about our program.
Okay, I didn't know. I knew that Tim has created this program that would be an exclusive and inclusive of the kind of recovery men need to maintain their sexual addiction sobriety. So I just wasn't sure if he'd be joining us. But Ashley, you advocate for this programming because you know that it is so important for the addicts that are getting out of recovery, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I can speak a little bit about that and just kind of like the genesis of this program and how it was created. And so, you know, you've spoken or been in contact with my colleague, Tim Kiernan, and we actually were both therapists in an inpatient treatment center, and we both worked in the men's sex addiction recovery program. And as a result, or of the way that the program was structured that we worked at, we were in charge of discharge planning for our clients. So after working with them in an inpatient facility for anywhere from 30 to 90 days, depending upon how long they stayed, it was then our responsibility to find appropriate outpatient services for them. And what we would find time and time again, I mean, we just hit block after block after block. You know, you have a man enter treatment for sex addiction, and he's solely sex addiction. There's not any cross addiction with alcohol or drug. And we had a very, very difficult time finding adequate resources as they returned to their hometown, or most specifically, I would say it was around the next step for them as they were stepping down. And as clinicians, of course, we're looking at clinical markers. How do we best set this individual up for success in their recovery journey? And again, you know, it would make so much sense. Man, they could really benefit from a step-down program into like a sober living facility, or sometimes people say, oh, is it like a halfway house? So those sober living and halfway house sometimes get interchanged, so there could be maybe a little confusion around there. But as we talk about our program or what Outer Circle has to offer, I think that there will be some clarity around that. Anyway, so time and again, what we would run into is there just wasn't a place for us to be able to send these men who were looking for appropriate, or, you know, looking for some recovery services. And I also had several situations where, again, working with clients and doing discharge planning, and there was what we call cross addiction. So there were, you know, alcohol or drug addiction along with the sex addiction. And as we were looking at different sober living opportunities for them, found it very, very difficult for these men to be supported in their sexual addiction recovery. And so, when I would call and talk to these house managers or even, some of these program directors, depending upon, where I was seeking services, I would get answers like, no, they won't be able to work on their sex addiction here. They've just got to do the NA program, or they've just got to do the AA program, depending upon what fit. And again, there was just so much lack of understanding and awareness. So Tim and I, and as we were working together, just as we were talking about it one day, and came up with this idea. We're like, wouldn't it be awesome to have a place that would be supportive of every addiction across the board, whether it's a process addiction or a substance addiction, but that it would be a safe place for men to come in their next journey of recovery.
Okay, so who was independently wealthy that could put this house together, the Henry House, and make this happen?
So we were very blessed in that regard. And there's a gentleman by the name of Alan O'Brien. He's also, if you go to our website, you can read the bios up there. And I knew him on a personal level, and we would have discussions and, kind of floated this idea by him, or not idea, I was just talking about him. And this was like in a 5-year plan for me, it was just like, I have this idea, colleague of mine, yada, yada, just talking one day. And then he approached me, a little while later, and he said, I think I'd really like to talk to you more about this idea you have. He's like, I think I could really be interested in it. And I was like, what? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and strike while the iron's hot. And so we really just got the ball rolling that way.
Well, and I've got to really say I so appreciate your due diligence, because clearly I've been working with sex addicts for over 15 years, and there are no facilities that help support them and create an environment for ongoing recovery when they're not really ready to go back into their own situation, because they know that there aren't enough support set up for them yet. And they need more time to practice the skills and the resources to make their life happen. So it's like you thought about it, you created it, your higher power brought it to you, and I'm sure this has been an amazing journey. Tell us a little bit about Henry House. What is it like?
Oh, a day in the life. So I'll walk you through there. So Henry House is really it's a more structured program. So I'll give you that. In a way, we aren't an outpatient treatment program or an intensive outpatient, but our program is really structured like one. So at Henry House, first of all, you're in a beautiful facility. It's a home that was originally built in around, I want to say, the 1890s, and it has undergone like a $2 million renovation. And there's really been a lot of integrity and original integrity and character left in the home, which there's a lot of symbolism there for us when we talk about recovery and, making the old new, or, redoing, right? We're redoing life in a lot of ways when we're in recovery. So there's a lot of a labor of love just even in the facility. And so it is an 11-bed, so it's a smaller recovery home, an 11-bed facility, male only. And it is really focused, and so the day-to-day, I can tell you, they are involved in a group every single day, whether it's a life skills group or a therapist-led process group. They have community meeting in the morning. Clients who come are plugged into services for them that revolve, or, that a sense that we call it kind of concierge approach here. So when we get a referral, and whether it's the potential client themselves or another therapist reaching out to us saying, hey, I've got this client, here's what's going on, this kind of thing, we really take individuals on a case-by-case basis, meaning that we look at their individual needs, and then we plug them into what we believe will be the services that will promote further healing in their recovery journey. So they do 2 individual therapy sessions per week. Like I said, they're in a group every day. They have volunteer requirements in the community. There's also 12-step meeting attendance requirements on a weekly basis. And it can be traditional 12-step. We also, in Nashville, have ability to plug people into refuge meetings as well. So if someone isn't, if they've tried 12-step, maybe it doesn't really fit for them, we do have some alternatives for them that will give them that rich experience of being connected and accountable, which we know are 2 key components for successful recovery.
Oh, yeah, I definitely know that connection is the antidote for sexual addiction, because it's all about creating a new community to replace those old behaviors that distracted you from real intimacy. So how do people get referred to Henry House?
So it happens, a couple of different ways. A few different ways, I guess. So clinicians who are working in the inpatient facilities, and again, when I was telling that story about how Tim and I found ourselves in circumstances time and again where it's like, man, we've got to discharge this client, and shoot, like we're really concerned, sending them straight back into the environment in which they came from, we don't give it a very good prognosis. So it could be that type of situation where a clinician reaches out to us and says, hey, we have the situation, they've done inpatient, and then this is their step down. Individuals therapists in the community can also reach out to us, and I wouldn't just say in the Nashville community, but there could be another therapist out there who's been working with a client that's going, man, best case scenario for this guy would be if we could even just do a step-up program. Maybe they don't really need inpatient, but they would really benefit from a more structured program. So we've had referrals from outpatient therapists as well, as it's related to that. So I would say really between other facilities, other professionals, that's where we've really received our referrals from.
So that's interesting. It's not like people that are being released necessarily from treatment centers. That's one way. But it's also for people that are struggling with their own outpatient therapy, and they need more resources to be successful. So they come into the Henry House and then get to practice with a community of people those recovery skills they need to be successful.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And it really is a beautiful program. We had a client recently whose home base was or is Atlanta, and which is a 3-hour commute from Nashville to Atlanta. And so as he was, progressing in the program, we even, we were able to integrate or start to integrate, some of those resources in Atlanta even before he discharged from our program. So it just really turned into a really smooth transition for him. Or even where, his wife was still in the Atlanta area, the collaboration that was taking place between her therapist and his therapist here in Nashville, and then just kind of that handoff to a therapist in Atlanta, again, has made, for a much more streamlined process in his journey. And it's been exciting to watch.
Well, I bet. And so let me ask you, I know that we can't talk money on a radio show. That would go against many rules and regulations, but what are the payment plans, or what could somebody expect if they wanted to be at Henry House? Is there an intake worker that works out the money part of it? Does insurance cover that kind of thing?
Well, so here's So yes, there's an intake worker that works on that part of it. And so when an individual who's interested in the program calls in, so they're, they talk to either Tim or Alan or me, one of the three of us. They're going to get one of the three of us to talk to. But that intake individual really, walks them through what some of these options are. It's difficult as a sober living resident to be contracted with any insurance. And as a result, so we're not contracted on any insurance panel, but we definitely provide documentation that a client would need in order to file that claim. And we can also plug them into or have a resource to plug them into that can even help them file that claim if they need that assistance.
Okay, so let's talk now email or phone numbers. How can somebody get a hold of your organization? What's your website? What's your phone number? And what's the email?
Yeah. So our phone number is 615-988-9088. So it's kind of, some fun numbers there, 988-9088, area code 615. Our email, what you'd want to email info@outercirclerecovery.com. And our website is www.outercirclerecovery.com.
Okay, well, that is good information. And, obviously your program's very structured. It offers groups, it offers therapy groups, it offers community groups, it offers life skill groups. And you're in the mecca of what I call sexual addiction resources, because Nashville really does have a wonderful grouping of resources, treatment centers, intensives, CSATs. I mean, just amazing. So do you have a long waiting list?
We don't right now. We do have some open beds right now. And so we're in a position, to be able to act quickly and get you into to the treatment quickly. So, but yes, I'm glad that you touched on the community. A lot of people don't realize what a resource Nashville is, and especially I would say definitely in the sex addiction community, but also in the substance abuse as well. The amount of drug and alcohol and sexual addiction 12-step meetings that are going on here. We've got over 500 a week just in this town alone. And one of the great things about where Henry House is located is it's located literally kind of in the middle of Nashville proper. So it just it's almost like, spokes in a tire. You could go out any direction, and within a short amount of distance, you're going to be able to find plenty of meetings to plug into. Also wanted to put out there as well, because
I actually have done a lot of touring of Nashville. I'm based out of Indianapolis, which is in the Midwest, and there is only one CSAT in a city of 2 million people, and yet there are 200 CSATs in my neighboring city, Chicago. And so one of the things I know about Nashville is it's one of the closest areas for good treatment in the Midwest. So if somebody doesn't want to fly, they want to be able to drive and minimize their expenses, it's a great place to get fairly localized treatment. Now, I'm kind of wondering, when you're looking at a person and deciding if they're appropriate for the Henry House, what kinds of things do you look at?
Well, so we look at, first of all, what their treatment goals are, what it is that they are wanting to achieve. Secondly, we also take a look at the kind of treatment that they have received or they haven't. It's not you've had to have some in order to be with us, like we've touched on before. Again, I go to, we're looking at clinical markers. So one of the things that sets Henry House apart is you have fully licensed, clinicians on staff. So, I'm an LPC, MHSP designation in Tennessee. Tim is an LMFT, and we have other staff members that are also licensed clinicians. So you really have that clinical eye as well as experience of these individuals. We've been really blessed with individuals who've had a variety of experience. You couple like inpatient experience with outpatient experience, their own recovery journeys, and, so we really just assess the individual. Each individual that does come in, they also, as part of the program, receive a full, what we call like a psych intake. So they sit down with a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and, because we really take the full round spectrum approach. We're looking at all aspects, again, because we really want to set the addict up for a successful recovery journey.
Well, and I've got another question for you, because one of the things that I absolutely know to be true is I work with sex addicts, and then I'm also a certified partner specialist from APSATS, which means I know how to help partners and couples from a partner-sensitive approach. And I always talk to my groups, because I have sex addiction groups. I say, if you're single, it's a lot more difficult for you because you don't have the accountability of a partner living with you who is on some level very aware of her husband or his wife's acting out. So now I know this is male, this is just for the male population, but are these men primarily single or are they married?
The ones that we have had have been married. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, we're a fairly young program, and so I would say so far these individuals have been married. But actually, we have a client that is coming to us that is single. One of the things, when we talk single, again, I'll just throw out there Nashville as a community. This is a great area and a great place, let's say, for those young 20s that are still in college but are, looking for, because recovery. There's a very young community here that is in recovery, and, we're also in a community that has, you can throw a rock and hit a higher learning institution. And so there's a lot of options, for those individuals to continue to thrive in life. As it relates to, and be in recovery.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So my question to you was going to be, if they are married, what, if any, coordination do you provide for the wife, the partner?
So, yeah, and again, I act as the clinical director and certainly foster open communication. If a spouse is or partner is looking for resources, depending upon where they live or if they're already plugged in to resources, can certainly assist them there. If they're in a situation where they, if they're in the local community or if they're in a situation where they can travel to Nashville, we certainly have the capability to set up intensives or even to do couples work. So we really have a lot of options open to us.
Wow, that's fantastic, because I do think that unfortunately partners oftentimes get left out of the loop and they're not given the resources they really need to keep themselves safe and to provide that sense of security. So I'm glad to hear that you're willing to do what it takes to make that happen. And you're right, you're a new program, and when I heard that you had gotten started out, I sought you all out because I know how much we need sober living houses for our addicts. No matter what their addiction, but truly for our sex addicts, we have some facilities here in Indianapolis, and it's probably, if they house 20 addicts, at least 19 of them are drug or alcohol addicts. So for the sex addicts, it's important to be around fellowship and community so that they can really get healthy. What's the average stay for somebody who is at Henry House?
The average stay, I would say, is 45 to 90 days. Our program is really set up. It's more of an extended living program. So I'd say 90 days that's more average. I'd be more average, 3 months.
Got it. Okay, so that is the average. And that probably is a good enough amount of time to be able to, if you will, establish some well-developed recovery behaviors that you can take back home with you. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
And so talk a little bit about the recovery skills or resources they're given at the Henry House through Outer Circle Recovery.
So I would say, as a whole, or the biggest one that stands out to me is these are individuals who are really learning about healthy intimacy. And when I say intimacy, I know that you know this, Carol, but for those other listeners out there that may be listening, we're not talking about sex. We're talking about just appropriate emotional attachment. And so living with a community of individuals where that is the focus and that there is accountability happening, where there is accountability, becomes a real game changer for these guys. And just being able to, replace the unhealthy coping mechanism and that escape, and I feel pain, I want to get out of here, with again, with connection and community and what it is to feel and to move through and to have support in the process. So I would say that overall, that would be the overall, but to be more specific, some of the life skills groups that we target, it's things like budgeting, it would be nutrition. My gosh, I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank, but I would say those would be a couple of the life skills topics that are addressed. There's also the opportunity, or the skills part. I know what I was going to say. So when our approach around addiction recovery is looking at what is really motivating that addiction and what is underneath that. And so as these individuals are plugged into therapists, we have them plugged into therapists that are not just addressing the addiction, but that they're also doing the trauma work, the wounding. And so for these men to be able to walk out of therapy and be able to utilize tools on a daily basis that help them to make healthier choices for them and help them to stay connected to their authentic selves is huge.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I really know is that, men need to get that support from other men that really understand what this is all about. And that's when I talked with Patrick Carnes, one of the things I said to him is, Patrick, does it matter that I'm a woman and I'm working with addicts? And he said, well, absolutely not. In some cases, I think it's actually easier to talk to a woman. And then I said, well, what would you advise me to do in terms of working with sex addicts? And he said, well, the number one thing I would advise you to do, Carol, is I would advise you to start a sex addiction therapy group, because 12-step groups are imperative to recovery as far as I'm concerned. That's what he said. But he also said it is important that they develop a fellowship where there can be lots of crosstalk in their own lives. so that they call each other, so that they get to communicate, so that the group starts before and after the 12-step meeting. And he said, sex addiction groups are instrumental in helping people stay accountable. And so truly, in a recovery center like yours, at Henry House, it allows the addict to receive the fullest amount of connection with other fellowship members morning, noon, and night. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. 100% agree.
So now, last but not least, you're how old in terms of the facility?
We have been open since May, so we're 6 months into this.
Okay, and one more time, remind our listening audience how they can get a hold of you, what's the website, phone number, and also email.
So our website is www.outercirclerecovery.com. Our email is info, so info, at outercirclerecovery.com. And we can also be reached by telephone at 615-988-9088.
Well, let's just say that we have a listener who suspects that they have sex addiction and they're just tuning in for the very first time. I love the name of your recovery center, the Outer Circle Recovery. Would you explain that concept of the 3 circles, and especially that our outer circle recovery?
Absolutely. So I'm glad that you clued in on that. We love our name too, and it is symbolic or has a lot of meaning within the recovery, within the sex addiction community, for sure. So it comes from an exercise called a 3-circle plan, where we have the inner, the middle, and the outer circle. And so this is actually one of the first things that any addict in recovery tackles. I'll say hopefully one of the first things that they're tackling with their therapist, because it really is a clarifying and identifying exercise for them. So in this inner circle, you have your behaviors that would constitute a relapse, or essentially the behaviors that got you into treatment, into therapy, whatever it is that you are there to tackle. Those are your bottom line behaviors that you are striving to stay away from. Your middle circle acts as your warning signs, right? So what are the possible motivators? And so inside that circle, you're going to have emotions. You might have specific places, maybe even specific people that you've known to be triggers for you. The outer circle. So in any time when we are striving to change a behavior, it's not just about taking something away. We want to replace. And that is really the focus of the outer circle. The outer circle is identifying all of the healthier coping mechanisms that you are able to tap into as an addict in recovery that can keep you in recovery, as opposed to falling back into relapse or back into addiction. And so when we look at healthier options, I'm just going to kind of throw some out there. You're looking at the support of, okay, I've got a 12-step group, I've got a sponsor. My weekly group therapy with Carol the coach, that's a great resource for me. Exercising, eating healthier, attending my church services, or being involved with my church community. And the list can go on. And again, it's very personal, because you want it to work for the individual that you are working with. So Outer Circle Recovery, that's where that's our name and where we came up with, because we are really focused on the healthier coping mechanisms that's going to keep an individual on track in their recovery.
And those are the behaviors that we're striving for. Obviously
Absolutely.
that inner circle behavior are the deal breakers. Once somebody's in recovery, we hope that they've got their deal-breaking behaviors under control, but it is those middle circle behaviors, the slippery slope things that will take an addict down. So obviously the Henry House really works with those middle circle behaviors so that you don't fool yourself and think that you can flirt with some behaviors that aren't healthy. And then the movement towards those outer circle behaviors are those behaviors that are going to make you a healthy and well-adjusted person. And I don't know what you think, Ashley, but one of the things I believe is when somebody gets in good recovery that has had sexual addiction and they've learned how to manage it properly and they develop good outer circle behaviors, they are healthier than 98% of all individuals out there. I mean, they are way better,
agreed.
way healthier, and way better well-adjusted than your neighbor, your pastor, your doctor, and your brother. So I always feel good when somebody really works a good recovery program because I know they're ascribing to principles that are going to keep them authentic, transparent, and maintaining good integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really the key, and I like how you point that out, the integrity. And integrity is really an individual being congruent with themselves, with their core values, and that is exactly what the outer circle focuses on, is, what keeps you congruent with you and keeps you in your authentic self.
Well, I so appreciate you spending time with us talking about this extra resource that is so badly needed. One of the things I really believe from the bottom of my heart, and I've worked with thousands of addicts and thousands of partners, is that we may not have gotten into the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, but now that our global health organization has said that problematic sexual behavior is a real diagnosis, we are going to have more and more treatment centers, intensives, and sober living situations approved by insurance. And so you're at the grassroots of that, but it's exciting to see where you go with this beautiful home in Nashville, Tennessee. So I just admire the energy it took to put this thing together, and I'm so glad that the higher power kind of dropped in your lap somebody who was willing to help you make that dream come true.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for, having us on and highlighting our program. And, even if there's someone out there that just has, some general questions, please don't hesitate. We're here. We'll pick up the phone. We'll answer your emails. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and keep us posted about new services, new recovery centers, and all the good work you're going to be doing in the next decade or two.
We absolutely will. Thanks again, Carol.
All right. You have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So that was obviously a woman who had a dream and made it happen, and wow. How fortunate are we that somebody was innovative and put together with her cohort, Tim, a program, a project, and a resource that sex addicts really, really need. Again, I was talking with Ashley Smart, who has, with her cohort, Tim Kernan, created a program that offers 11 addicts an opportunity to stay in a recovery residence designed to assist individuals in their next step of recovery. The Henry House is a sober house and helps treat problematic sexual behavior by creating the therapeutic and community resources to help you really establish your recovery. And again, you can email at info@outercirclerecovery.com. The website is www.outercirclerecovery.com. And their phone number is 615-988-9088. I love it when new resources are being developed, and Nashville, Tennessee is a wonderful city with a lot of opportunities specifically for sex addicts. I do believe, I could be wrong, they really have more CSAT, Certified Sexual Addiction Therapists, than any other community I know. And that's where I did a lot of my supervision. That's where I got my training. And I love that it's only 5 hours away from Indianapolis, which, of course, is in the heart of the Midwest. Okay, well, we got to go. And, you know, I know this is going to be Thanksgiving for a lot of you. And that means that you're going to be spending time with family members and friends. And let's face it, I've been running male and female groups forever. And they always say, oh, my gosh, you know, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Family Day, it can be really tough if you have somebody who's alcoholic in your family, or if you have somebody who has a personality disorder, and you have to see them, and you have to stay neutral, and you cannot give them the power to make you feel anything. Because here's the deal. I'm not saying you can't feel. You got to be able to feel. But as an addict in good recovery, you have to get to the point where somebody else's obnoxious, intolerable, pessimistic behavior cannot activate you to the point where you want to act out, where you want to participate in negative behaviors. You got to insulate yourself and detach from that. So I hope Thanksgiving is absolutely wonderful. You know, I always say there are 3 keys to happiness, and they are stay in the moment. So really enjoy whoever you're with for Thanksgiving. And if you're with somebody cantankerous, find somebody that you do enjoy. 2, use the attitude of gratitude, and that's what Thanksgiving is all about. Look at what's working and not what isn't. And 3, look at your recovery and ask yourself, how am I stronger? How am I a better person? And what have I learned this year since last Thanksgiving? Get yourself out of that victim role and empower yourself with a lot of growth. And we'll see you next week for more Sex Health with Carol the Coach. Hey, fearlessly have courage to be yourself. We'll see you next Monday for more Sex Health with Carol the Coach.